Hi, my name is Scott Verosi, and I'm working on a book about mirror harmony. Mirror harmony is the same thing as negative harmony to me, interchangeable terms. We can get into why, who calls what later. Right now, I'd like to dig into some of the concepts that I've been exploring and talk about why I think the approach is novel. It's novel for two reasons. One, I've tried to find historical context and examples of who I think was consciously using mirror harmony and getting really great results from it. And second, I've tried to look at mirror harmony like a grand unified music theory where most, if not all, of the effects that composers have achieved in the past, you can explain through these reflections. And most, if not all, the sounds you're trying to achieve in your own compositions, you can achieve through using mirror harmony. There's two tools that I think comprise the entirety of this mirror harmony approach. One is symmetrical reflections, and that's kind of classic mirror harmony where you pick an axis point, and that symmetry point could be one single note, or it could be the space between two notes, in which case I would call it a symmetry pair axis. And then whatever intervals you use going one way with your source material, you then reconstruct those intervals going the opposite way to create your reflection. And then you can play them at the same time. You can modulate one to the other. You could use one as the upper structure of the other or vice versa. You can create melodies with it. You can do a ton of stuff. Let's get to some examples, and we'll do that right now. Did I talk? Nope, second tool, sorry. Second tool is balance transforms. And balance transforms is really a shortcut to incorporating multiple axes in one move, not having to think about it. And it's just, if I have a structure, let's say it's a 4-note structure, and I raise one voice by a half step, and then I drop another by a half step, then I've done a balance transform. And it's essentially the same as a symmetry reflection if you think about it long enough, but it's easier to just say the amount of motion up match the amount of motion down. And you might have to use more than one axis point to explain it with just symmetry reflection. So let's get into it. Really quick, I wanted to introduce a tool that a friend of mine built for me, and it's called the Mirror Harmony Cipher Disc. And basically, it's like a transposition wheel, but the circle of fifths goes in one direction on the outside, and it goes the opposite direction on the inside. And the reason being, it just mimics the exact same thing you do on a keyboard. If your symmetry point was D, and you went up a half step from D, your reflection would be down a half step from D, C sharp. So if you use your harmony cipher disc and you pair D with D, which is what you do to get a single note symmetry axis, you pair that note with itself. And then we look and say, okay, well, then what's E flat? Because that's what I went up to. E flat mirrors into C sharp. And basically you get all the structures, everything. So if you looked up if you said, well, what's my chord on the outside? And you looked at the notes that match that on the inside, you would get the symmetry reflection over the axis that you chose, which in this case is D. So let's look at D real quick. First example is going to be from Bartók. Okay, so that was just the half steps, just going up and down chromatically, and all the pairs happened. But what Bartók does is he starts Cantata Profana with basically an F melodic minor over D sound. He goes, and it descends as well. And then he ends the piece like a half hour later with same root note, but now he's doing A melodic minor over D. It's transformed. It's been transformed. In my opinion, Bartók has very consciously flipped something in order to create the opposite effect at the end of the piece as the piece started with. Now, if we can look at this real basically here, if I build that scale, starting with a D symmetry point is great practice for this stuff because visibly it's the same. Like if I go, that's the ending scale. And that's the beginning scale. They're just the same exact thing. Whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step. But one creates one sound and one creates the other. One more time, the sounds are this. And then the end of the piece. And then this is your diagram of exactly what's happening there, where the D symmetry center is chosen. A quick shortcut I want to mention is that your second degree of your scale is the symmetry point, meaning that for most scales, if you start on the second degree, the intervals up will match the intervals going down. So here, so the E is the second degree of your D7 sharp 11 scale, which is the same as A melodic minor at the end. And then your C is your second degree of your B flat dominant 7 sharp 11 scale, which is the same as the F melodic minor that starts the song. So again, your E is your symmetry center of most scales. E is the second degree of the D dominant 7 sharp 11 that ends the piece. C is the second degree of the B flat dominant 7 sharp 11 scale that begins the piece. But they use the bass note D because it's more ominous. And then those arrows just point to all the notes that are in those two scales. Those are the two. But our symmetry center is D, meaning we match D with D. But you always look for the twos to see what scales are very likely being used. Okay. So that being said, we move to our second example. This was D as our single note symmetry center axis. And we are going to go to E matched with E flat. So if we're using our mirror harmony cipher disc, you would match E with E flat, like so. And then this is kind of a very classic pairing in the mirror harmony / negative harmony world. The reason being that you would get C minor if you started with C major structures here. Your C and your G just swap places. I don't know if that's probably clear on my hand-drawn thing, so let's look there. Your C and your G just switch places. C becomes G and G becomes C, and then your E becomes E flat, and your C major structure turns into C minor. And this is pretty classic negative harmony. But the way that it's used in this next example is pretty great. I was not really thinking that way. So there's your E and your E flat. When you do a symmetry pair, you got to flip these for each other. So if E is in my beginning structure, then E flat replaces it, and vice versa. If E flat's in my beginning structure, E replaces it. So this is from Tristan und Isolde, which is an amazing opera by Wagner and one of kind of the watermarks of music theory history in terms of everybody's like, oh, what's he doing and why? And it's so amazing or whatever. But to me, it's exactly mirror harmony, and that explains it, and you don't need more of an explanation for it. The first chord, the Tristan chord, the famous Tristan chord that everybody talks about, is F, B, E flat, A flat, F, B, E flat, A flat. I'm not going to worry about why it's voiced like this right now. The example, the Tristan example goes, and then the A flat rises to that, and then our chord drops down to like an E dominant. We have this passing tone. So again, the deal is basically, I think of this first chord as F minor 7 flat 5. I think a lot of people do, but we can get into that sometime if we want to. You just take the A flat, drop it down here, and you've got F minor 7 flat 5. F, A flat, C flat, E flat. Now the second chord in the piece is E dominant 7. E, G sharp, B, D. What's interesting is if we go down the intervals of that F minor 7 flat 5, we go down a major third, then down a minor third, then down another minor third. Then you've got, then your mirror reflection of that over the E flat equals E axis is E, up a major third, up a minor third, up a minor third. And it is E dominant 7. So becomes, and that's the opening of the opera Tristan und Isolde. So to me, it's just reflecting something over a symmetry axis. It's taking your first chord, reflecting it into this. And you can say, well, and let me take one moment to do this. And say that I've seen some content about mirror harmony where it talks about generating upper structures from lower structures and lower structures from upper structures. And I think this is a great example of just going like, hey, that sounds cool. It sounds dissonant, but it sounds cool. And all I did was reflect one chord into another chord and then play them at the same time. And Bartók gets deep into this kind of stuff. But Scott, you say, there's passing tones there. And I'll say, okay, what are the passing tones? And you say, well, A flat becomes A, first of all. Okay, well then what's the next passing tone? B flat becomes B. Oh, okay. Well, what's A relative to E flat? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 half steps down. Right? And then what's B flat relative to E? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 half steps up. So basically, the first two chords of Tristan und Isolde mirror to become the second two chords of Tristan und Isolde. The chords with passing tones are this, mirrored into this. So to do them all in a row, you go. But it's the same exact structure flipped over the E flat equals E axis. Okay, so that's a really cool example. In this, I made this axis as well. I wanted to show that. I should probably do this real slow for you could freeze frame it if you want and kind of go, well, I started with my F, A flat, and then B, D. F, A flat, B, where did I put my D? D. And then they flip into E, G sharp, B, D. And I didn't put the passing tones in, but it's easy enough. B flat equals A. Okay, so what else I want to talk about? I want to talk about something real cool, which is, oh, Scott, you say it can be a grand unified theory. And I say, yeah, it can, kind of. Maybe not even kind of, maybe totally. So well, let's do this. If you take D as your symmetry axis, we already talked about D, the second note being the symmetry center, meaning if I go up whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, and I go down whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, I'll be creating the C major scale in both directions. With whatever questionable fingering that was. But what I kind of want to point out is if I go from D up a whole step, then a minor third, then a major third, then a fourth, minor third, fourth, I created an C major scale, a C major chord, okay? So up a whole step, minor third, fourth. If I go down, whole step, minor third, fourth, I've got A minor. So basically you can mirror a scale into itself by using the 2 as the symmetrical axis. And I get, now if I go to D minor, minor third, major third, minor third, major third down gives me G major. So basically just by doing the exact same thing that we did in the Tristan und Isolde example, where we mirror the first and second chord into the third and fourth. Now we're going to mirror our first into our second and our third into our fourth. And we just get kind of the just kind of basic 1-6-2-5 progression, the basis of, you know, most songs. And that's all I have to say about that stuff. So I put together a 5-email course, and I've got a link to that down there. If you want to go through that, that's free. I will take your email address. I won't do anything with it except offer you this book when it comes out. And I'm probably going to put my email address down there as well. Let me know if you want one of these cipher disc things, because I'd love to print a bunch of them and send them out. So once again, my name is Scott Verossi, and I'm working on a book about mirror harmony. And I hope you stay in touch. I hope you dig into this stuff, and please be in touch with me for any reason whatsoever. I appreciate it. Thanks and take care.